Hello again, I'm Bob Colt, and welcome to Continuing Conversations in Charlotte Public Schools. And Sarah Jobson is with me. Sarah,
Hi.
you're going to be Employee of the Month. What does that mean? Did they tell you anything about what that means?
They actually haven't. I'm going to find out here shortly at the board meeting. I'm very excited to find out why I'm Employee of the Month this month.
Tell us what you do.
Well, I'm a guidance counselor at the high school. I'm one of two counselors, and I've been here for 7 years. So, as you might imagine, my job description varies greatly from day to day, but basically my job is working to respond to student and parent needs.
And so, for students, what kind of needs do they have? What does a counselor actually do for students at the high school?
Well, we do a lot of things, but primarily our focus is on the academic piece. So course scheduling, sequencing for four-year planning, that's our primary goal. We very importantly also have to monitor credits that are earned so that we can make sure that students are progressing in their graduation needs and that they'll, at the end of 4 years, obtain their diploma, which is the goal. We also deal with smaller personal issues like friend issues or things along those lines. We do refer out if it's anything major that we're not trained specifically for.
So you're a counselor to get them through the program. You're not really a psychologist. You're not analyzing students. If you have problems, then you'll be able to refer them on.
Exactly.
Okay, so do students have a difficult time getting through a 4-year program in Charlotte Public Schools? You really have to focus and make sure, that's part of your job, to make sure that the program is right so that they make it.
Exactly. Well, I think students sometimes struggle with understanding what will be most helpful to them post-high school. It's not necessarily getting through the 4 years, but choosing courses that are appropriate for their next plans. So making sure that they're choosing a rigorous schedule if they're planning on a 4-year college after high school, or getting the appropriate shared time training if they're planning to go into a vocational class or a vocational career after high school. So I don't know that necessarily that they can't get through the curriculum, it's just trying to assist them in making the appropriate plans for post-high school.
Right, because obviously they might go on and do something, whether it's directly to a job market or some other training for a job, or continuing their education some way. So you've got to make sure that they've had the experience. I would imagine that a lot of kids kind of focus on the destination and not necessarily appreciate the journey that they're going through.
Sure.
But you have to make sure that it's a rich experience for them, right?
We do.
And do you try to give them a diverse amount of activity that they'll go through in their educational experience? Or even at the high school level, do you focus them in on what they need?
We really do try to give them that diverse experience. That's the one thing that I'm really prideful in our offerings. We have a broad range of elective classes that students can try, and I always try to talk with my students about how it's important to try and find out if they don't like something, just as it's important to try something and find out that they really like it. There's value in both of those experiences. So we encourage them to try out our variety of electives, even if it doesn't seem at first glance like it's something that they're going to be interested in, because there is something to be learned from all the classes that we have available.
So as a counselor, you're not a remedial teacher. You're not helping them through. You're really guiding them through a process of education, and also trying to identify some diversity, that they may need some diverse background in education.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you actually encourage them to try different things.
We do.
And that must be scary for kids.
It is. It absolutely is. But as you know, like me being on camera, we all have to go out of our comfort zone at some point, and that's a real world thing that can help them later on. Trying something that they didn't think or didn't know that they wanted to do, and so we really do try to guide them in that process of making good decisions. And we certainly have to assist students with grading issues and things along those lines, but we try to look at it from the broader perspective of how is this affecting you now, but also how is this going to affect you later, and why do we need to address this now, and try to smooth the road as you go along. So
Sarah, a young student comes into you at the high school and says, look, I need help, I'm not sure I'm on the right course or schedule of courses and program, and what do you do to help them? Do you take a look at the record and kind of make sure they're on the right path, or what's your next step?
Well, we do definitely review their records. So every incoming freshman, we hand schedule the 2 counselors to make sure that they have all of the required classes that they need. And then with regards to their elective choices, we meet with them in small groups and kind of talk about the things that we have available so they have a first glance at what they have as their options. But then after the students get going in their freshman year, if they were to come to me and say, okay, I don't really know what my next step is, can you help with that? Then I would kind of just start to talk with them in general, like, okay, well, what are some of your interests? What are things that you're already engaged in? So then we might try a class along those lines. You'll see, or working in the school setting, so many of their 9th and 10th grade classes are requirements that they oftentimes right away don't get a chance to explore things. And I think that oftentimes works out sort of because they do need a structure of knowing, well, these are the things I have to do first. And then as they start to get some ground underneath their feet and kind of understand how the high school routine goes, then they get to make some more choices on their electives, and then we can really start to guide that process through conversations with them.
So you, Sarah Jobson, as upcoming employee of the month, need to know as much or more about everything that's going on in the school than anyone.
Right.
I mean, because you have to know all of the programs, all of the courses, all of the tracks that kids could be on.
Absolutely.
And so what sort of advice do you give them? Do you find that kids are prepared for high school and thinking about the next step, or are they really looking for help and direction?
I think they're mostly looking for help and direction. I think that oftentimes they do have some vague notion that they either like to go to college or they'd like to go to the military or they'd like to go into a job, and I think that some of that's influenced by their families and things that they've already witnessed that way. But I think in general they are looking for a lot of guidance, and they're seeking that from their teachers in their elective areas and from us as counselors, their friends, and they're looking all over trying to kind of mold a path for themselves and find out what it is that they're interested in, how to get there.
It must be challenging for you if a young person comes to you and they haven't had a culture or a family culture of going to college, for instance. You've got to tell them all about it, don't you?
Yes, we do.
And so that's sort of breaking up a whole culture in the family, because a lot of kids just don't have basic information about preparing, going on for college. And that's why scheduling the classes are so important. And so what do you tell that kid? How do you make them broaden their perspective a little bit?
Well, basically, we try to start the talks as early as we can, but if we have not had any of the specific talks by the time they're seniors, then we literally do sit down with each one of our seniors and say, hey, okay, we're here, the end of this year, you're going to be making some decisions. What do we need to do to get you on to the next path? And so sometimes we will use resources that we have, like career cruising, which allows them to do interest inventories and things like that. Sometimes they'll have an inkling of what it is that they'd like to do, and so then I'll pull up information, we'll look through it, we'll talk about it. Sometimes their parents will come in and we'll sit down with all of us and we'll talk about it. So we just try to gauge where they're at that point and try to, make the best referrals that we can and talk through that process.
How are the parents involved then? I mean, do you actually have conversations or direct communication with parents about their young person?
Yeah, we definitely, as seniors, the first step that we do is we send home a letter stating exactly where the senior is. So, for example, your senior has achieved 27 of the 34 credits that they need. The classes that they have to take this year are English 12 and pre-calculus, for example. And so we send out that first letter. We also send out, we used to do mailings, but now we do a lot of e-mailings. And so we'll send out like a senior planning guide. This is month by month what your student should be doing. And so we send out that piece. And then at that time we usually get a lot of questions like, okay, my kid's doing this. Is this good? Or my kid isn't really doing anything. How can I encourage them?
Yeah.
Or could you talk with so-and-so? And so those pieces of information generally kind of open the door for questions to start coming in, and we just kind of go from there.
So would you describe your role as really a problem solver or a conduit for communication, or how would you describe exactly what you do?
I'd say either one of those could be accurate,
Yeah.
depending on the situation. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of seniors that by the time they're seniors, they have a very good idea of what it is that they're going to do. And so for those seniors, we just really provide them the documents they need. So, I've already applied to MSU and so on and so forth. Could you please send my transcripts, my counselor page, that kind of thing. So for those kids, our job is very simple.
Yeah.
for some of the other students who are like, well, I'm thinking along those lines, then we act more as a facilitator of the process. Okay, so if you're looking at Western, have you visited? No. Okay, well, here, let me show you how to set up a visit. And so we show them how to do that, and we hope that they're going to do that and, follow through with that plan. And then there's also the students that are like, I really have no idea. And that's when we pull out the career cruising and we start the talks and so I'd say depending on the student, we carry a very different role.
And you really have to have an individual plan for each student.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you can't pull these things off the shelf, right?
No, you sure can't.
So if a student has achieved everything, taken the basic courses that they have to,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get to the senior level, do you focus them or guide them to some electives that maybe they haven't had an opportunity for? Or is there some advanced program that you kind of push them towards?
Absolutely. For all of our levels, we do what's called a data-driven scheduling model, and so we're always looking at test scores and past grades and scheduling classes accordingly, whether that's a normal track or some advanced classes, or whether we look at the shared time programs. So in the end of the junior year, when students are signing up for their courses, we are looking at the seniors' transcript, the juniors' transcripts and saying, okay, wow, well, looks like this kid has taken, 3 auto classes. Maybe the shared time auto program at LCC would be a great fit for them. And so then we're talking with that student about that. Whereas the other students who have maybe another student has taken, all of the English classes, all of the maths, they're at the pre-calc level. Oh, well, I think that you're definitely an AP kid. You should try AP Calc and see if you can earn some, a high enough score to earn some college credit. So we're always in the junior year, especially looking at those things, but all throughout our scheduling model, we do look at data for scheduling.
So not only do you have to know everything about Charlotte Public Schools, you have to know everything about universities and community colleges and where kids may move on. How do you keep up with all of that information, Sarah?
Well, we're fortunate in that our public universities and our private colleges put on every year in the fall kind of a what's new at our institution type of meeting. And so you just take your basic knowledge that you kind of keep from year to year, and then you just keep trying to build on, what's new with them and what might be different and what might apply to your student body, and you just kind of take that back to the kids.
So you do think about kids individually. Is there something unique about Charlotte Public Schools? Do you have a unique program that really seems to be successful, that kids are able to achieve and move on to other professions?
I think we have a few. We have our ag department, which is really big, and we've had a lot of our students that will move directly into MSU's ag program, and so that's been a nice transition for us, especially because MSU is so close to us, being in East Lansing. Our advanced students do very well in college, so any of our students who are on the AP track tend to really acclimate well into a 4-year college, and so I think we definitely have that going for us. And then our students who are doing the shared time programs at LCC, whether it be welding, AIS, the auto tech or the auto repair, they seem to transition very well and either stay in the programs for certification or decide at least that they want a career in that and maybe do some additional training beyond that.
Do you have the knowledge to give them some advice or counsel about scholarship opportunities or other things because now really funding that next stage of education is a concern for kids?
Sure. We definitely provide that to students to the best of what we know of. Anything that comes into our office, we actually post on an Edmodo page, and students can see it's all listed by deadlines, and they see the main criteria, and then we give them the links or tell them how to access the application. So we do share all of that. Any newsletters that I might receive from the Office of Scholarships and Grants, any outside information that we receive that we think is valid for students, we do post to that site to try to provide that for students.
Well, Sarah, thank you for this conversation. This is the easiest thing you've done today, I'm sure.
Thank you.
I'm Bob Colt, and we'll continue our conversations in Charlotte Public Schools.